Azerbaijan, Fake and Truth. Hello, with this information I would like to present the poverty of Azerbaijani historiography and propaganda machine, to present the origins of the existing Armenian-Azerbaijani problems. I would very much like this information to be heard also in Azerbaijan, and there they would put aside their fake textbooks and try to check the arguments I have cited from foreign unbiased sources. So, Azerbaijan was created on May 27, 1918, with the collapse of the Transcaucasian Federal Republic. What happened on the given territory millennia and hundreds of years ago? The Armenian highland is the homeland of us Armenians, whose border in the east stretched to the rivers Kura, Araks, and the Caspian Sea. On the eastern bank of the Kura was the state of Aghvank, Albania, Aghvania, a friendly and elite state. Georgian legend says that the elder son of Torgom, the grandson of the youngest son of Noah, Habet, was Haik, the forefather of the Armenians. Kartlos was the forefather of the Georgians. Ranos was the Aghvanians one, Egres was the Igors, and his 4 other sons were the forefathers of 4 Caucasian nations. After the adoption of Christianity in Armenia, Christianity spread and was adopted in Aghvank during the reign of King Urnair in 370. After the fall of the Armenian Artsakh kingdom in 428, Artsakh, Syunik, and Pytagaran were separated from Greater Armenia, Metzhaik. Since 480s, here reigned the King Vachagan-III the Pious, Parepasht, who descended from Haykazun Sisakyan Aranshahik's dynasty. Aghvank as well was under his rule. After the creation of the Armenian alphabet, Mesrop Mashtots created the Aghvank script together with the Albanian Benjamin. The Albanian king Vachagan-III the Pious founded schools all over Artsakh, Utik, and Aghvank. Sure, you remember Ghazaros Aghayan's Anahit tale, where it was spoken about King Vachagan. Partav, the capital of Aghvank, was founded by Vache B. Aranshahik, who preceded King Vachagan in 462. During the Arab rule, Haik, Armenia, Virk, Georgia, and Aghvank, Albania, formed one emirate called Armenia, where Haik played the main role. Liberating from the Arab rule, the Armenians founded Bagratid Armenia, and the princes of the Khachen province of Artsakh, the Aranshahiks, reigned in Aghvank with the title King of Aghvank. In fact, during the Bagratid dynasty in the 9th to 11th centuries, Aghvank was under the domination of the Bagratid. The fall of the Armenian kingdom in 1045 led to the stately state of us, Armenians, for about 900 years, during which we were subjected to raids, massacres, and domination by nomadic backward tribes. In the 11th century, several Turkish tribes appeared in the region. In the 11th century, the Seljuk Turks conquered Armenia and Byzantine Asia Minor as the result of the battles of Pasen in 1048 and Manasgert in 1071. The Seljuk Turks invaded the territory of Aghvank and settled there. Then were the Turkish Oghuz tribes. Over the centuries, they expelled and assimilated the indigenous peoples. The Aghvans left the arena of history, their language and culture disappeared. In 1502, Safavid Persia was founded, getting free from the Turkish Akkoyunlu rule. Aghvank and Armenia became part of it. The wars that began in 1514 between Safavid Persia and Ottoman Turkey lasted for more than 220 years. During that time, Armenia was twice divided between the two. The territory of Aghvank, together with Eastern Armenia, was under Persian rule. The first Russian-Persian War took place in 1804 to 1813, and on October 12, 1813, the Treaty of Gulistan was signed, due to which the whole of Transcaucasia passed to Russia, that is, the territory of former Aghvank, Utik, Syunik, Pytagaran, Artsakh, Lori, Tavush, and Shirak. The Second Russian-Persian War took place in 1826 to 1828, as a result of which the Treaty of Turkmenchay was signed in February 1828, by which the Khanates of Yerevan, Nakhichevan, and the Ordobat region came under rule of Russia. From the newly occupied regions, the Armenian region was formed by the order of the Russian government in March 1828. In 1840, the Armenian region was abolished and was included in the Georgian Emirati province, center Tbilisi, and the Caspian region, center Shamakh. Into Georgian Emirati province, Armenian and Armenian-populated Javakh, Lori, Tavush, Gardmank, up to Sevan Basin were included. This province was later renamed into Tbilisi province. The province of Karabakh, which during the Persian rule was called the Vilayet of Karabakh, was included in the Caspian region. It included Armenian Syunik, Artsakh, and Utik. The Caspian region was later renamed Shamakhi District from 1840 to 1859, Baku District from 1859 to 1868, and the Elizabethpol District from 1868 to 1918. During the 19th century, by the order of Russian government, several administrative changes were made in the Caucasus. The province of Yerevan included the territories of Yerevan and Nakhichevan Khanates. By the administrative change of 1867, Transcaucasia was divided into 5 states or districts, and according to the law of 1874, the province of Yerevan was divided into 7 counties: Yerevan, Echmiadzin, Alexandropol, Nor-Bayazet, Nakhichevan, Surmalu, and Sharur-Daralayas. Azerbaijan often tries to own the history of Aghvank, forgetting that the present-day Azerbaijani nation emerged only in the 20th century at the expense of the Turkish tribes and the indigenous peoples assimilated by them. It tries to assimilate the history of ours, Armenians, not taking into account that the history of our nation had been written both by our historians and by the historians of our neighboring countries, who, by the way, were the eyewitnesses and contemporaries of these historical events. Azerbaijan is also trying to salvage the history of Persia, forgetting that the Gulistan and Turkmenchay treaties were signed between Russia and Persia. Only 105 years ago, the state of Azerbaijan was formed. By the way, I would advise Azeris to look at the old maps of the world created by the representatives of different nations at different times. Armenia and the Armenian state are on all of them, but the name Azerbaijan will not be found anywhere. Where does the name Azerbaijan come from? In the north of Iran, to the south of the Paytakaran province of Greater Armenia, there was the Atrpatakan geographical unit, which was sometimes a separate state, sometimes the part of Iran. Changing over the centuries, the name Atrpatakan turned into Azerbaijan, but the territory now called Azerbaijan had nothing to do with Atrpatakan-Azerbaijan. Present-day Azerbaijan, taking the name of Iranian Azerbaijan, puts its eye on the Iranian Azerbaijan. It calls itself North Azerbaijan, claiming to the South Azerbaijan. It calls itself East Azerbaijan, claiming to Armenia, as a territory seized from them and occupied by us, Armenians. It has a tendency to imitate well. If we have the loss of Western Armenia and a goal, then they should have it too. They present the genocide as organized by us, Armenians. They have committed the genocide in 1905 to 1907, 1918 to 1920, in 1988 to 1994, and they put themselves in the place of a victim and the victim in the place of the genocide committers. A very important question. Before owing the culture of the Armenians and all the indigenous peoples, do the Azerbaijanis remember what alphabet they write in? In the post-Soviet period, the Azerbaijanis changed their alphabet and took the Turkish one. The Turkish alphabet was created by Hakop Martayan in 1925, which was later on named Dilachar, the man who opened the language. Namely, even the Turkish alphabet was created by an Armenian. Well, it seems we have deviated. Let's continue to present the history. Thus, Transcaucasia remained under Russian rule until 1918. In February 1917, Tsarism, the government of Russia under the Tsars, was overthrown in Russia, after which the Tsarist viceroyalty in the Caucasus was overthrown. The power passed to the Special Transcaucasian Committee, headed by the Russian temporary government, consisting of the representatives of 3 major nations: Armenians, Georgians, and Caucasian Tatars, the local Muslim residents called so by the Russians. In October 1917, the Bolshevik Revolution led by Lenin took place in Russia, after which the Caucasus separated from Russia. In January 1918, Turkey invaded Transcaucasia, under the pressure of which the Transcaucasian Federative Republic was established on April 22. The last sitting of the Transcaucasian Seim was convened on May 26, which, with the insistence of the Georgians, made a decision on the dissolution of the Transcaucasian Federal Republic. Georgia declared its independence on the same day. The next day, on May 27th, a new state entered the arena of history, the Eastern Caucasus Muslim Republic, which was later renamed into Azerbaijan, adopting the name of Iranian Azerbaijan. The next day, on May 28th, Armenia declared independence, still leaving unfinished battles against Turkey in Sardarabad, Abaran, Karakilisa. Since its foundation, Azerbaijan has pursued an anti-Armenian policy. Turkey stood behind it with its pan-Turanian program. They were trying to liquidate Armenia and unite with each other. The last action of the Young Turks was the eviction of Armenians from Baku, giving as a gift their brother Azerbaijan, a capital free of Armenians. Thus, 90,000 Armenians lived in Baku, who controlled the entire oil industry, trade, culture, and economy. The first oil well in Baku was opened by Mirzoyev, an Armenian businessman from Tbilisi, in 1869. In September 1918, the Turkish army, together with the Muslims of Baku, massacred 30,000 local Armenians. The rest hardly saved. The capital of Azerbaijan was emptied of Armenians who had created and improved it for centuries. Azerbaijan was struggling to seize Artsakh, Syunik, Nakhichevan, seeking to join Turkey. Armenia was successfully fighting against Azerbaijan's occupation policy until April 1920, when Azerbaijan became Soviet and, with the support of Soviet Russia, began to fight successfully against the Republic of Armenia. On August 10, 1920, an agreement was signed in Tbilisi, Georgia, between Armenia and Russia, declaring Karabakh, Zangezur, and Nakhichevan disputed territories. During that time, an alliance was signed between Turkey and Russia, with which they destroyed the First Republic of Armenia and divided its territories. Nakhichevan passed to Azerbaijan as a protectorate under an illegal Russian-Turkish treaty signed in Moscow on March 16, 1921, where the two countries divided the territories of a third country without its presence. Moreover, the agreement stated that Nakhichevan should form an autonomous territory under the auspices of Azerbaijan. In 1923, Nakhichevan Autonomous Region was established, and in 1924, Nakhichevan Autonomous Soviet Socialist Republic became part of the Azerbaijan SSR. If in 1917 Armenians made up 40% of the population of Nakhichevan, then in 1979 it was only 2%. Despite all these illegalities, Nakhichevan is still under the subordination of Azerbaijan, which has completely evicted Armenians. Armenian cultural monuments have been destroyed, and 10,000 cross stones, khachkars, in Chugha were destroyed in the 2000s. A question to the Azerbaijanis: if you consider the churches and khachkars in Nakhichevan, Artsakh, and in your opinion other Azerbaijani territories, the heritage of the Aghvanks, and you also consider yourself to be the descendants of the Aghvanks, why did you ruin and destroy those historical monuments? Don't you respect your ancestors? I will answer, because you are sure that they are Armenian. There are scripts in Armenian on all of them. The last Armenians left Nakhichevan in the very first stage of the Artsakh movement. The same fate awaited Artsakh if in 1988 Artsakh did not start the struggle for unification with Armenia. Artsakh was given to Azerbaijan on July 5, 1921, by a decision of the Assembly of Caucasus Bureau of Communist Bolshevik Party of Russia, which was also illegal because the party body had no authority to settle territorial disputes, and Stalin, who chaired the assembly, was not even the head of state. Artsakh was given to Azerbaijan with a much larger territory than even today, after the liberation of territories in the result of the war. On July 7, 1923, by the decision of Azerbaijan, autonomy was declared over only a part of Nagorno-Karabakh. The borders were drawn in such a way that it did not have a common border with Armenia. The rest part of Artsakh, which was left out of the Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous Region, was settled in the regions of Azerbaijan SSR. Today, Azerbaijan considers the territories occupied by Armenians and makes demands on them. Let me mention that the northern region of Artsakh Gardmank is still part of Azerbaijan, while it was also part of Artsakh at the time of its handing in to Azerbaijan. Even between the Soviet Armenia and NKAO Red Kurdistan was created with the center of Lachin, was settled with Kurds with the aim of turning the NKAO into an enclave. Of course, it did not last long. In 1929, the Kurdish province was destroyed and abolished. Its territory was turned into administrative units of Azerbaijan. For 70 years in Artsakh, in Nakhichevan, Azerbaijan pursued a policy of eviction of Armenians. There were no Armenian schools, no connection with Armenia, no roads were repaired, and the economy was kept at the lowest level. Immigration of Armenians was encouraged, and Muslims were given privileges and assistance in case of resettlement in the same areas. If in 1921, when Artsakh was handed over to Azerbaijan, Armenians made up 95% of the population, in 1979, Armenians made up 76% of the population of Artsakh. In February 1988, the Armenians of Artsakh stood up to secede from Azerbaijan and reunite with Armenia, no longer enduring national discrimination. An application was sent to Moscow. Such petitions were also sent in 1963, 1965, and 1977. Moreover, in the 1963 application, it was spoken about the solution of the issue of a reunification of Nagorno-Karabakh and all the adjacent Armenian regions with the Armenian SSR. The result was the arrest, deportations, and imprisonment of the organizers. This time too, the massacres, deportations, and looting of all Armenians in Sumgait, Shushik, Kirovabad, and all of Azerbaijan followed the peaceful demand of the Armenians. The last was the massacre of Armenians in Baku in January 1990. 500,000 to 700,000 Armenians were deported from Azerbaijan, leaving all their property. In the bordered regions of Armenia and Artsakh, Azeris were engaged in robbery, burning Armenian fields and gardens, stealing cattle, taking Armenians hostage, and demanding ransom. The self-defense of the Armenians against the atrocities of Azerbaijan led to a war, during which the Azerbaijanis organized the massacres of the village of Maraga on April 10, 1992, which is not even mentioned in Azerbaijan. In February 1992, near Aghdam, the National Front of Azerbaijan massacred people of its own nationality, the civilian population who was leaving Khojali. The aim was to accuse the Armenians of genocide and to oust President Mutalibov. The Khojali genocide is now being commemorated around the world, unfairly blaming Armenians who left a humanitarian corridor for civilians to flee. Ayaz Mutalibov himself, many Azeris and foreigners speak about this fact. During the war, 29 Armenian villages were evicted by the most brutal means. Stepanakert, all the border settlements of Artsakh and Armenia were bombed. After so much atrocities against the Armenians, when Azerbaijan felt its defeat, it started to ask for a ceasefire, applied to Russia, to international organizations, asking to stop the war. A ceasefire was signed on May 12, 1994, under the pressure and mediation of Russia and interstate organizations. It was violated in April 2016 when Azerbaijan launched a large-scale attack on Artsakh. Our young servicemen prevented the attack of the specially trained soldiers of Azerbaijan. We had losses, but their main goal was prevented. It is already for about 30 years negotiations have been going on. Azerbaijan demands the handover of Artsakh, considering that the Armenians have occupied a quarter of its territory. They promised to give autonomy to the Nagorno-Karabakh Republic within Azerbaijan and consider the territories around the Nagorno-Karabakh to be seized from Azerbaijan. That is, it demands a return to the pre-80s. Now let us ask a question to the authorities of Azerbaijan. The facts mentioned above were realized in the conditions of the existence of the Soviet Union, a state that forced all the republics to take each other as brothers. How did you manage to kill the Armenians, who have been called by you brothers for 70 years, only 7 days after the start of the Artsakh movement? What is the status of the national minorities of Azerbaijan, which are indigenous peoples of the region, in contrast to the Turk Azerbaijanis? The Talish people, the Lezgins, the Avars, the Udis, the Tsakhurs, the Tats have no opportunity to preserve their national identity, have no national schools. They are subjected to assimilation. They take their sons to the front lines, thus solving two problems. In case of being killed, the non-Turk will die, and secondly, they will sow hatred towards the Armenians. I think the indigenous nations also understand who should have been the real owners of that region. Living side by side with Armenians in peace and solidarity for centuries, they could have their own nation-states and preserve their national identity. Today there is only one country left in the region that fights against the plans of pan-Turkism, and that country is Armenia. All this happens even in case that indigenous peoples of Azerbaijan may disappear from the arena of history if they continue to obey silently to the genocidal policy of their enslaver. In the UN Convention of December 9, 1948, the genocide is defined as the targeted use of one of the following acts: to exterminate national, ethnic, racial, or religious groups, in part or in whole. Also, the deliberately subjection of the members of the group to such living conditions that cause partial or complete physical annihilation. Therefore, we can qualify Azerbaijan's policy of forcibly deportation, massacres, deprivation of the homeland, property, held for 100 years towards us, Armenians, as a genocide. It is a genocide too, the policy towards the Talish, Lezgins, Avars, Udis, Kushurs, Tats, to assimilate, to make forget the national identity, to enslave in their own homeland, to relocate forcibly, and to deport. There are many examples. Only the examples of Faradin Abuzoda, Shahin Mirzoyev, Alikram Humatov are enough to show Azerbaijan's xenophobic attitude towards indigenous nations. Therefore, I would like to draw everyone's attention to the above-mentioned facts, especially to all the individuals and organizations dealing with the Artsakh issue. It is necessary to realize that the unpunished actions of Azerbaijan are directed not only towards the Armenians and native nations. The Turkish-Azerbaijani alliance threatens Russia and Iran as well, and it is a threat to all progressive humanity in general. If Azerbaijan does not wish to coexist peacefully with its neighbors, then it must be forced to do so. Here the unification of all forces is important, of Armenians, Talishis, Lezgins, Avars, Udis, Tsakhurs, Tats, of the international organizations and democratic states. This article was written in 2019. Today, it is already October 2021. In autumn of 2020, on September 27th, Azerbaijan, with the great participation of Turkey, started a large-scale war against Artsakh. During the 44-day war, they occupied 75% of Artsakh, and in the rest part of the Artsakh, the Russian troops were located. Azerbaijan, which lost 26 years ago, won this war. I will not make political analysis, it was just a brief historical overview directed also to the Azerbaijani society to thinking over. History is being written on the basis of real facts that need to be learned from foreign sources too. Several generations were brought up with a false and fake history, whose identity was formed on the ideology of hatred toward the Armenians. This ongoing hostility causes pain to both sides, but this is the reality.